On the rugged cliffs of a quiet Italian seaside village, the afternoon calm was shattered by an unimaginable discovery. A local out for a walk noticed 4 large black trash bags, torn open by the wind and sharp rocks. From the jagged edge of one bag, something horrifying emerged: a human hand. Within minutes, a panicked call was made to emergency services. By late afternoon on March 20th, 2022, Carabinieri officers had sealed off the entire scene. Whatever had happened here, it was clear. This was no ordinary crime. But who was the victim? What led to such a grim fate? And why would someone go to such lengths to conceal it? To answer these questions, we must turn back the clock. Behind every sensational headline is a real person with a story of their own. The victim was Carol, known in her professional life as Charlotte. Born in 1995, she was raised by a single Italian mother in the peaceful town of Sesto. By all accounts, Carol was bright, energetic, and exceptionally talented with languages. She grew up loving books, cherishing a quiet, ordinary childhood. Yet, as is so often the case, the surface calm would soon be disturbed by the unpredictable storms of adult life. In 2015, Carol faced an unplanned pregnancy and, as a young single mother, struggled financially. She moved to Verona, searching for work and a fresh start. No one in the village could have predicted that Carol's journey would intersect with a series of fateful decisions, nor that her life and death would become the center of an investigation that would shake the entire community. The victim's life behind the mask. Carol's life, on the surface, seemed marked by resilience and ambition. As a young mother, she was determined to build a better future for her child. But as the years went by, obstacles continued to mount. The year 2020 brought new and unforeseen challenges. Like so many, Carol found herself out of work as the COVID-19 pandemic swept across Italy. Desperate to make ends meet, she first tried her hand at YouTube, but with bills piling up, she took a different path. Under the stage name Charlotte, Carol entered the world of online adult content, starting with OnlyFans and eventually participating in adult films. She didn't hide her choices. Publicly, Carol defended her work, insisting that it was a legal profession and her own decision. Yet she couldn't escape the sting of social stigma. In a conservative community, her line of work made her a target for judgment and isolation. Still, Carol pressed forward, focusing on her daughter and maintaining her independence. Her personal life was no less complicated. After a painful breakup with her child's father, Carol's search for companionship led her to Davide Fontana, a 42-year-old banker and food blogger with a passion for photography. Fontana was more than just a partner. He became deeply involved in Carol's career, helping her film and photograph content, and taking a cut of her earnings. Their relationship was volatile, defined by a cycle of jealousy, possessiveness, and uneasy truces. But by late 2021, a new chapter seemed possible. Carol became engaged to a fellow performer named Salvatore. She confided to friends that she planned to leave the industry behind, move back to Verona, and be closer to her child. With her fiancé's support, she was determined to start fresh, away from the shadow of her old life. Yet, as Carol prepared for this transition, beneath the surface, tensions were brewing, some that would soon prove deadly. Cracks appear, tensions and warnings. For those closest to Carol, the warning signs had been building. Jealousy simmered quietly in David Fontana, her on-again, off-again partner and former collaborator. Friends would later recall how Fontana had once threatened Carol's ex, the father of her child. At times, his behavior crossed the line from concern to something darker. Control disguised as protectiveness, support laced with resentment. Behind closed doors, Carol faced the pressure of public judgment and the heavy weight of her own mental health. She was caught in the crossfire of online scrutiny and real-world isolation, forced to defend her choices while simply trying to survive. The relationship with Fontana grew increasingly unstable, punctuated by breakups and half-hearted reconciliations. Carol's decision to leave the adult industry, to reclaim her life and her future, was more than just a career move. It was a step toward freedom. But for Fontana, it meant a loss of influence, income, and the one relationship that made him feel significant. As 2022 began, Carol mapped out her exit plan. She would perform one last show, close her old accounts, and move her life and her child back to Verona. Every detail was carefully considered, but as anyone who has watched these stories unfold knows, planning is one thing. Escaping the past is another. On the night of January 11, 2022, Carol was offered a final, lucrative custom order for a film. The request was explicit: a violent scene involving bondage, gagging, and a hood placed over her head. She was to act out a scenario in which she was forced to reveal the passcode to her phone. The supposed client? As investigators would later discover, the order came from a fake account, one meticulously crafted by none other than David Fontana. Did Carol sense the danger? Did she hesitate as the camera began to roll, or was she determined to finish and walk away for good? These are questions that haunt everyone who has followed the case. What is clear is this: the night would end in tragedy, with consequences no one could have imagined. The night of the crime. Timeline unfolds January 11th, 2022. It began as just another job, one last performance before leaving it all behind. Carol, ever the professional, prepared for the shoot, not knowing this would be the night that changed everything. She met with David Fontana, the man who had helped shape much of her career, both behind the camera and in her personal life. The custom order was explicit, with every detail meticulously outlined. Carol was to be tied up, gagged, a hood placed over her head, all while simulating violence for the camera. But what Carol didn't know was that the supposed client behind this order didn't exist. The request had been orchestrated by Fontana himself, a calculated act of deception, carefully hidden behind the digital veil of a fake account. As filming began, the line between performance and reality blurred. What was meant to be staged aggression turned shockingly real. Fontana struck Carol, the blows far exceeding any scripted scene. In those moments, panic must have flickered across Carol's eyes, but instead of calling for help, Fontana escalated. He demanded her phone's passcode, forcing her to give up her most private information under duress. When the violence left Carol mortally wounded, Fontana made a chilling decision. Rather than seek medical attention, he ended her life, cutting her throat. For 2 days after, Fontana returned to the scene, as if erasing evidence could also erase his guilt. He bought a saw, heavy-duty scissors, a chainsaw, and even a freezer and a charcoal grill. The next steps were almost clinical: dismemberment, attempts to burn tissue, the concealment of remains. On January 14th, Carol was supposed to board a plane to Paris to reunite with her fiancé. Instead, Fontana used her phone to send a message. "I have COVID. I'm self-isolating," buying himself more time and extending the illusion that Carol was still alive. The body was kept frozen for weeks. Online, Carol's accounts continued posting, responding to friends and family, as Fontana maintained the cruel facade. Meanwhile, the real Carol had vanished. Her absence raising questions no digital message could silence. The investigation, witnesses, forensics, and a web of deceit. March 20th, 2022. The discovery of Carol's remains at the foot of those Italian cliffs set off a cascade of questions and a race against time. Carabinieri investigators arrived to find 4 black trash bags, each containing gruesome evidence, 18 separate body parts, dismembered with a precision that suggested more than just panic. Forensic teams immediately suspected the body had been frozen, a chilling detail pointing to premeditation and a calculated cover-up. From the outset, the investigators were methodical. They began by canvassing witnesses, local residents who had stumbled upon the bags, as well as anyone who might have seen suspicious activity in the area. Early forensic analysis offered vital clues. The victim was a woman, around 155 centimeters tall, with dark hair and purple nail polish. 11 tattoos adorned her body, but disturbingly, many had been slashed or mutilated in a clear attempt to prevent identification. For days, the police struggled to put a name to the victim. Then, at a press conference, images of the tattoos were released to the public. Within a week, a former colleague recognized the ink. It was Charlotte, the stage name Carol had used online. DNA confirmation followed swiftly. The case was no longer just a mystery. It had a face, a life, and a grieving family, demanding answers. Investigators dug deeper, turning to digital footprints. They traced activity on Carol's phone and social media accounts long after her presumed date of death. Bank records revealed rent payments and online purchases, a freezer, cutting tools, even charcoal, all made with Carol's cards after she had disappeared. Police traced the infamous custom order to a fake account, linking every thread back to Fontana. A journalist, Andrea Torelli, played an unexpected role. Messaging Carol's account, Torelli received evasive replies that only deepened his suspicions. Alerting authorities before breaking the story, he added pressure to an already tense investigation. Suspects were narrowed down. Carol's fiancé and former partner were questioned and cleared. The net tightened around someone much closer to home, someone who had gone to extraordinary lengths to hide the truth. The turning point. Digital clues and a web unravels. As March drew to a close, the case took a dramatic turn. It was no longer just a question of who, but how such an elaborate deception had managed to fool so many for so long. After journalist Andrea Torelli went public with his suspicions, the investigation's focus shifted sharply to those in Carol's inner circle. On March 27, 2022, both David Fontana and Salvatore, Carol's fiancé, arrived at the police station to report her missing. The timing seemed suspect. Investigators quickly noticed inconsistencies in Fontana's account. He claimed he hadn't seen Carol in over 2 years, a statement at odds with digital evidence and eyewitness reports. Why lie, unless there was something to hide? Police intensified their digital forensics work, piecing together a meticulous timeline from phone logs, online messages, and purchase records. The client, who had ordered the violent video, was exposed as a fake persona, one that Fontana himself had constructed. Every detail, from the purchase of the freezer and saws to the activity on Carol's social media after her death, pointed back to him. Fontana had not only covered his tracks, but also worked to create the illusion that Carol was alive and well, responding to friends, paying bills, and even uploading old photos. On March 29th, the facade crumbled. Armed with damning evidence, authorities arrested Fontana on suspicion of murder with aggravating circumstances. Confronted with overwhelming proof, he began to confess, though only in fragments, always careful to withhold details that might fully reveal his motives. For investigators, every admission was cross-checked with physical evidence from Fontana's home and the digital trail he had left behind. In the aftermath, a haunting question lingered. If not for the sharp eye of a journalist and the relentless pursuit of forensic specialists, would the truth ever have surfaced? This case, so carefully disguised in the digital age, now lay bare, a testament to the power of persistence and the hidden dangers of trust. Trial, verdict, and the search for justice. The wheels of justice turned quickly. On November 24, 2022, the courtroom filled with the weight of expectation and the pain of loss. The defendant, David Fontana, faced a mountain of evidence, both physical and digital, linking him to Carol's death and the elaborate cover-up that followed. Forensic psychiatrists had evaluated Fontana and found him fully aware of his actions, fit to stand trial, and capable of distinguishing right from wrong. The prosecution built their case methodically, laying out the disturbing extent of Fontana's preparation, the creation of a fake online identity, the manipulation of Carol's social media, the chilling purchase of tools and a freezer, and the calculated disposal of her body. It was a narrative woven from digital breadcrumbs and cold reality, a case that left little room for doubt about premeditation. Prosecutors argued that Fontana's motives were a toxic blend of jealousy, control, and financial desperation, threatened by Carol's determination to leave both him and the adult industry behind. Fontana's defense attempted to portray the crime as impulsive, the actions of a man pushed beyond his limits. But the timeline of events, and the cold, deliberate steps taken after Carol's death, undermined any plea for leniency. On June 12, 2023, the court handed down its verdict: 30 years in prison. The judge stopped short of the harshest possible sentence, declining to elevate the charge to the highest level of premeditated murder. Still, the consequences were severe. Fontana was ordered to pay $180,000 in damages to Carol's young child, $100,000 to her grieving parents, and $20,000 to the father of her child. For Carol's family, the verdict brought little comfort. Their daughter was gone, her life reduced to headlines and courtroom testimony. For the broader community, the trial forced uncomfortable questions into the open about violence against women, the dangers lurking in the adult entertainment industry, and the ways digital tools can be weaponized to manipulate and deceive. Aftermath, reflection, and a hard lesson. In the months that followed the verdict, the pain of loss lingered like a shadow over Carol's family and friends. The sentence, though severe, seemed inadequate in the eyes of those left behind. Her mother, still living in the small town where Carol grew up, faced each day with a quiet, unyielding grief. Carol's child would now grow up without a mother, forced to make sense of a world where violence and betrayal had shattered the ordinary promise of safety. The case stirred deep debate in Italy and beyond. In community forums, news panels, and the digital public square, people argued about the risks faced by women, particularly those in the adult entertainment industry, and the responsibilities of online platforms in preventing the manipulation of digital identities. There was outrage that for weeks, Fontana had been able to impersonate Carol, using her phone and social media to construct a cruel illusion that she was still alive. How many other victims, people asked, might slip through the cracks when the virtual world can be so easily exploited. For law enforcement, the investigation became a textbook example of modern policing. The breakthrough had come not from a single clue, but from the careful, painstaking analysis of digital footprints, transaction records, device logs, social media patterns, and the collaboration between police and a persistent journalist. The identification of Carol through her tattoos underscored the value of forensic artistry and public cooperation. Above all, it was a reminder that even the most elaborate digital cover-up cannot erase the truth. But perhaps the most important lesson lies in empathy. Carol's choices did not diminish her right to safety or respect. The real tragedy was not in her profession, but in the way trust and power were abused by someone close to her. Her story is a stark warning. Real danger so often hides behind a familiar face. As the case closed and headlines faded, a sobering message remained. Justice may be slow and grief may endure, but the pursuit of truth and dignity for every victim is a fight that must never be abandoned. The case of Carol, known to many as Charlotte, became a chilling example of trust betrayed and the dangers lurking beneath the surface of the digital world. What began as the disappearance of a young mother in Italy soon unraveled into a complex web of jealousy, manipulation, and deception. Through the tireless efforts of law enforcement, forensic experts, and one persistent journalist, the truth came to light. Carol had been lured and killed by someone she once trusted, her final days concealed by a digital facade. The investigation highlighted not only the power of forensic technology, but also the enduring impact of violence against women, reminding us that behind every headline is a real life, forever changed. If you found this story thought-provoking, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow our channel for more real-life mysteries and unsolved cases. Your support helps bring attention to stories that deserve to be heard, and together, we can continue shining a light on the search for justice.